Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Len Grant, and I'm a freelance photographer and writer based here in Manchester.
How important is architectural photography for the field of architecture itself?
I guess because many people actually experience a building through the photographs and not through actually being there, it's hugely important. And of all media, film, photography, whatever, photography is the thing that most people get to experience new and existing buildings. And I mean, in this country, there are probably, I don't know, I haven't really considered this for a while, probably a dozen well-known architectural photographers who work for, half a dozen or less well-known architectural magazines. And the architects, because they want their work shown in a particular magazine, feel compelled to commission a particular type of photographer, all of whom are fantastic, and I admire them greatly. But I don't see myself as in that group at all.
Do you think the main aim of architectural photography is to create art, or do you think it's to document?
Oh dear, that's an interesting question. Can it not do both? It's interesting, isn't it? Because over time, I mean, you could look at some architectural photographs that were taken, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they may well have been taken to document, but they may be considered more as art now. And why is one a document and one art, and can they not be both? I think they'd probably be both. A lot of it depends on why the photographer's taking the work and who's commissioning them to do it.
Do you see buildings as entities or objects, or do you see them almost kind of, for want of a better word, personified?
I get less excited about, and this is probably going to debunk a bit of a myth about my work. I'm less excited about the finished building. I'm more excited about the process that goes on because, yes, you can go and document and photograph and create art using a wonderful piece of architecture, and you can do that over a period of time. You can go 1 week and get pretty much the same shot as you might have got the following week if the light conditions were the same. When you photograph the process of construction, those 2 days are never the same. So you're going and you're capturing a moment in time that can't be repeated. And I don't know, it feels as if you kind of capturing a little bit of local history, a little bit of, this is what was happening on this site, in this place, at that one time.
Is there a difference between photographing people and photographing buildings? Because a lot of people, a lot of examples of architectural photography are buildings without people.
Now, don't you find that a bit bizarre? Because the whole idea of having buildings is they are accommodating people. And whether it's the architect or the photographer sees that having people in some of their shots, not all architectural photographers, I should say, but that kind of clutters the image. And maybe if you want to just show the building, fair enough. But quite often the architectural photographer's assistant might be the one blur that you see in a otherwise uncluttered shot.
Do you think that light and shadow are important parts of photographing buildings or the built environment?
Yeah, of course. That's what photography is. It's about light, and it's about using light. And whether you're photographing buildings or any scene at all, when I talk to prospective photographers, whether they're amateur photographers or aspiring professional photographers, The key is to look at the light, and that's whatever subject you're photographing. And I do say to people, if you have a favourite building on the way to work, you're on the bus, look at it in different light conditions, in different seasons, and see how it changes in those different conditions. Yeah, you've got to look at light.
Photographs are essentially quite static things. How do you make photographs more dynamic?
How do I make photographs more dynamic? Well, the photographs that we're talking about are the process of people making the building. I think almost by definition they are more dynamic. And people say there's a particular style to my photography. I guess there is after such a long time. And I think it's to do with, capturing a moment. Is it a heroic moment? I don't know, but it's kind of giving the people who are creating the building some sort of recognition. And yes, of course, a good photograph has some dynamism in it, whether it's a people picture, and you can always have dynamic photographs which haven't got people in them. But yeah, dynamism is good.
Talking more about your process now, how much post-production editing goes into your work?
Well, two things there, post-production and editing. In terms of post-production, sounds to me like doing things on Photoshop. Very, very little. I hardly ever use Photoshop. I use a program called Lightroom, and where I would change or correct the levels to make it look more realistic. But I don't particularly do anything to do with saturation or anything like those things. Of course, editing is a different principle altogether. And yes, lie awake at night thinking about editing and how one shot, might follow another. Because as I said, I like to see myself as a storyteller in words, in pictures, and the editing in both is critical.
If a student wanted to get into photographing the built environment, what would be your advice for them?
Diversify. Diversify into something else as well. That's my advice to all photography students, frankly, is have more than one string to your bow.